Many artisans, craftspeople, and overall geniuses have contributed mightily to the success of Hasbro's G.I. Joe classified series over the years. But arguably, none more so than our next two guests, and that is Cory Cantelupe and Fred Aczon. I've been excited for this for a very long time, and I think you're going to enjoy what's coming up next. Folks, you are about to watch a Black Genghis presentation. Welcome, everybody, to Black Genghis. I am your host, KJ, and with me are the incredible, outstanding, dynamic duo, as I like to call them. First, I would like to introduce Cory Cantelupe. How's it going?
Hey, man. It's going great. Thank you for that incredible intro. Far too nice. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. There is a cat on my lap, so if she makes an appearance, sorry. But she's
awesome. No, that's fine. All our animal friends are welcome, as they've been incredibly sculpted at Hasbro. And of course, to your right and to my upper right is the one and only Fred Aczon of Boss Fight Studios and other various works. Fred, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Well, listen, first off, Joe Fest just happened last week. We talked about it a little bit earlier before the show. Cory, how did you enjoy your time in Augusta?
It was awesome. This was my second year at Joe Fest, and it's a phenomenal show. A lot of really great people, and the social aspect and the community of Joe Fest is, really a big part of why I love it so much. So I got to go with Skeletron last year and this year, and they're a great group of guys to go with as well. Joe Fest is picking up. There was a lot more of the independent toy community, and companies and such there. And so I want to continue to see that grow and grow, and support that. So it's a great show, and, I highly recommend it to anyone that's into the fandom to check it out if they can.
Okay. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to Skeletron. They are amazing. If you are interested to see their works, I recommend going to skeletron.com. It's pretty amazing stuff. It's sort of an update of the old Palitoy Action Force in their signature vehicle, the Roboskull. So check that out if you'd like to know more.
Yep. And for those interested, the Roboskull was a Kickstarter, but it is still available up on pre-order. So skeletron.com, you can pre-order yours, and they're going to be shipping in the next couple of months. So we're all really excited about that. I think people are going to be really impressed by what Skeletron was able to do with the Roboskull. So yeah,
can't wait.
Yeah. Fred, how are you yourself doing, man? How's your 2024 been going?
All right.
Awesome. In that case, let me go ahead. Let's rock and roll. So, G.I. Joe Classified series, one of my favorites. No, it's my favorite. It's my favorite line. It got me through the pandemic. It got me back into collecting, and it's been incredible. So I wanted to talk about your times at Hasbro. I think you both were temp workers at Hasbro. What was that like as far as like approaching your dream job in the beginning? Fred, I'll start with you.
I kind of like it too, that episode of The Simpsons where Bart Simpson's goes to the Mad magazine headquarters. Imagine what it's going to be like. And it exceeded his dreams. At that point in time, in 2008, it was like that for me. It's just a whole group of people who were into toys, and and they loved it. So.
And what about going on to Boss Fight Studio? What was that like, as far as like striking out on your own?
It was a little nerve-wracking. It's it's very risky, but I think worth the risk and very rewarding as well. It was a complete learning experience, and still is.
Okay. I mean, I think it's incredible what you've been able to do with. I love the pulp era figures. So whenever I can get that from folks like yourself or NECA or Mezco, Flash Gordon, the Punisher, you name it. You got Cowboys, you got Pirates, you got all sorts of stuff. You got Davy Jones's Core of the Dead stuff. Now that was from that wasn't some Sideshow. Sideshow has those figures as well. But is that from Boss Fight Studio?
Which one's the
Core of the Dead?
Core of the Dead is Sideshow's IP.
Okay.
So we asked them if we could play in their little wheelhouse, and the whole dark fantasy aspect kind of was very enticing to us, and we loved playing it. So they said yes, and it's been great working with them.
Okay. Well, it's all been incredible stuff, and today we're going to really focus on G.I. Joe Classified series. But I just want to give people a sense of like everything that you guys have been responsible for, and like where you're also going to be heading next afterwards. Which brings us back to Skeletron. So, Cory, what was it like, sort of like getting the bat signal, the skull signal, I guess, and then like going in and working with these guys?
Yeah, it was awesome. After being let go from Hasbro, these things, they happen. And so I was trying to figure out sort of what was next for me. Been at Hasbro for 9 years at that point, and so it was like, okay, kind of starting fresh. I had a mutual contact with the guys at Skeletron, and I came highly recommended to them. And that mutual contact also reached out to me and said, hey, the guys at Skeletron, would be able to, be a great fit for me. And so, yeah, we just started chatting about stuff, and it was still early on enough in the being let go that I was like, well, I don't really know sort of what I want to be doing yet, but I know I want to do action figures and I love toys, and all of that. So, I was like, let me see what you're working on, and we can just have some conversations about it. And then that pretty quickly snowballed into me, taking on projects, and doing freelance and consulting with them. And then it was January of this year that I have, officially joined the Skeletron team full time. And so being able to work with them, on a much larger scale, than just an occasional project here and there. Now I'm embedded into the team, and just recently I got to go over to China. Skeletron sent me to China to check out the factories, get updates on the Roboskull, and all the Kickstarter stuff, and trying to get, progress on that so that we can get it out the door and get it into the hands of the, the fans here, as fast as possible. And so, yeah, just working with that team, as close as I can to, make the best product that we can, and we're all very passionate about that, trying to always push the bar, trying to make everything better, and they're a great team to be able to do that with. So, yeah. It's been awesome.
We were able to host them on one of our earlier episodes of Welcome to the Terradrome over on the Toy Kind of Mood, and they were just excellent gents. And speaking of excellent gents, once again, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I'm sure the dude on the left is pretty cool too.
That's Tony Calorigo.
Yes.
One of our other great sculptors at Boss Fight.
Okay. But I just want to say, like the love shines through, and just seeing how well you all work with each other. You two are dyed-in-the-wool geeks. Like I like to think Guillermo del Toro will like hand you guys out like a challenge coin or a badge or something just for that. And there's no fakery here, man. I mean, it's right here. Like,
oh geez, yeah.
Oh, we went to was it JoeCon? JoeCon.
It was JoeCon of 2009, because we were still temping at that time. Yeah.
It was in Providence. Yep. Remember the first thing we went there, we got denied entry because we were not part of the VIP squad, so we had to come back the next day.
Yep. But yeah, I put together that Crimson Cobra Commander costume, and my wife was a Crimson Guard girlfriend at the time, but
that's awesome.
So we did cosplay for that, and it was super fun being able to walk around and, interact with the fans and such, and having been working on, the pursuit of Cobra stuff at that time. The fans were super excited, for the brand, and making some really great stuff. And so it was a cool time to be, in the fandom. And, it was awesome that JoeCon at that point was, coming local for us, and so Hasbro could have a presence and we could go. And, it was great. It was a good show.
Yeah, man. And I think the fan community, we're working on bringing it back. I should have went to Joe Fest this year, and I'm going to save some money now. Like after I got the Skybound compendium, like I'm like, all right, that's it. On the breaks, I'm gonna have a Joe Fest fund off to the other side.
That's awesome.
I have to say, you guys have been doing this for a while, so I want to talk about, some of your earliest work. Is like I have been wanting to do this for years. I'm like so stoked right now. So because the bones of what Classified Series is, I mean, it's right there. So Fred, I'm going to start with you once again. Like let's talk about some of this stuff, man. Like this stuff is ferocious. I would say ahead of its time. And keep in mind, this stuff is like 10, 12, 15 years old. So the same design principles that you all were working with, I mean, it's there. It's been evident for a very long time. So talk to us about how exciting it was to team up with Cory and everyone else in doing a 6-inch G.I. Joe line.
For both of us, it's been our dream for a long time. When I first got into Hasbro, Cory was part of a group before me. And everybody's telling me, yeah, you like this guy, Cory Cantelupe. He does customs just like you. You guys will get along. So when we finally did get to work together at Hasbro, and, we got to show each other our customs, and they're like both G.I. Joe 6-inch customs. We're not going to see wavelength, it was great.
Yeah. Even at that time, doing customs, you research like, hey, what else has other people done and whatnot. And so, I hadn't met Fred, but I was already a fan of what he was doing. He was very prominent, on his tank and the other, custom forums and such with his, 6-inch stuff. And so I was already a big fan of what he was doing there. And it wasn't even until we were like, oh, let's, share the customs that we've done that I've been like, oh, you are 2D Toys, I've been following your stuff, I'm a big fan. And so, yeah, it was really cool to be able to have that connection, early on, and geez, nearly 10 years before, Classified Series and 6-inch Joes became real. So, we've been into this for a long time for sure.
Yeah, we're definitely fans and been, like I said, I think we've been wanting to see this line, even as a, as a consumer, we want this line to exist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have to give a shout out to your Roadblock custom. Even though there's still some work that needed to be done on it, it's massive and it's incredible. And it's like, so that's the kind of thing that kind of endeared me to the line, that it wasn't just this corporate product. It's like, buy, consume. Like I put on the They Live glasses and I'm like, what? Hasbro, they're run by Elizabeth. No, it's people. It's people who love this and they've been steeped in this for a long time. I mean, that's the stuff that really keeps me going in doing this stuff. So I would say, just moving right along, and then I'm going to also talk to you both about like you're doing your custom work and infusing it into Classified Series and everything else that you learn with 3 3/4, Pursuit of Cobra, Retaliation, and everything else. But Cory, this stuff, this is the stuff that blew me away. Where I'm like, okay, these guys, they know what they're doing. Like these are the people you want making 6-inch G.I. Joe figures. So
yeah, well, thank you. That means a lot, and these customs are, it's certainly a blast from the past here, working on those in college, but, there is a lot of the bones of Classified Series seen there. I've been a 6-inch collector, really since Marvel Legends Wave 3, I think, was the one that really got me into it.
Okay, way back.
Really collecting, as a adult, if you will, instead of just picking up toys here and there, to play with. I still do play with my toys for sure, but
Yeah.
collecting as a whole line, and really building it as a collection that's displayable, that's at a larger scale. And yeah, so 6-inch really is what drew me into that, and fell in love with the GI Joe brand, just because it's an awesome brand. And just getting my toe into customizing, really, the 6-inch GI Joes was one of the first things I wanted to tackle. And so yeah, I was pleased that I was able to do. I think I ended up finishing like 10. Ended up having like 5 Joe and 5 Cobra figures, which
Yeah.
was a nice little collection, on my display, for a long time, until we finally, kicked off the line for real, and then I was
Yeah.
able to shove those all in the bin and put out what was real, and what was even more special to me by that point. So yeah, I loved it, and always will, really.
Yeah, man. That was seeing those customs. I was like, man, these are some tough customs. But then seeing like how far back, I mean, it was like prototypes. It was like epic, like
Yeah.
tracing everything I'm serious. It was like once I saw, because once again, hold on a second. So this Sarge was one of my top 10 figures of the year when it came out. And just really quick, I'm just going to like it's right there. It's right there. Like
yeah, I mean, Sarge has an iconic look for sure, and using the tools that we had, and the fodder parts that we had around, that was a pretty
limited.
Yeah, it was limited.
Like having
but
finding
also there was
pants or military fatigues at that time was very, very limited.
Yeah. The Duke custom that I did was utilizing the Nick Fury like 2-pack, and I don't remember who the other 2-pack was, but yes, that's right. Yeah, the Captain America, and that 2-pack ended up getting clearanced out, and so I just picked up every one that I could.
Yep.
I still have probably 50 of those bodies around, just because I was like, it's so rare to find 6-inch characters with fatigue pants, and that type of thing. So once you did, you latched onto it tight.
Man, like that's real. I mean, shout out to once again Stalker. Stalker is one of my favorites, and I feel like it's criminal how much the Stalker cleared out. I picked out as many as I could, and yeah, I was using it left and right, like that web gear. Whenever I see this web gear resurface, I'm like, oh man, I already got those web gears, but that's okay. That's okay, though. I'll let it run.
Yep.
One of my absolute favorites. In fact, hold on a second. So this is your classified Stalker, and this is the retro collection Stalker, right?
Yep.
And then we're also going to see the retro card and classified scale and everything else. So when it comes to like the vintage figures or figures that you have worked on before, how much does that feed into when you're doing with classified series and like harkening back to previous work, not just Real American Hero in the 80s, but what you've already done and building on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, all of that, feeds into it, and, particularly working on classified series, obviously working with an incredibly talented designer, Lenny was just, an incredible partner to work with. And so he was great at putting together, very comprehensive inputs of, this is what he wants the character to be, doing all of the turn drawings himself. He's a very talented, draftsman, illustrator. And so getting that information was, obviously a very strong, jumping off point. His input here for Tripwire was, awesome. And he already knew, kind of how he wanted the secondaries to layer, and all those things. And so working with him, you get the sculpt kicked off, that then you have a discussion that's like, okay, do we want it to have a clasp, or a lot of the secondaries we don't actually have removable. They obviously can be removable, but they don't have the specific openings like tripwires does, because we wanted that to be easily accessible for the the consumer to be able to take it off, switch it, customize it however they choose the look. And yeah, a lot of our history goes into those things because we have so much experience both with making toys and collecting them. That's one of the things that I was really proud of is, because I have, a pretty extensive collection, and so, I mean, this is just my G.I. Joes and my Mythic Legions, but I, have been continuing to collect Marvel Legends since that, initial, wave 3 from 2003, I think, or something like that. So that's huge. I have hundreds of 4-inch GI Joes from 25th anniversary through Pursuit of Cobra and on. I mean, I could go on and on. My collection's quite large, and I know Fred's is as well. And so when you have that much, essentially input of information, where you're constantly, seeing what one company's doing, what one brand is doing, it allows you to learn and to grow what you're doing yourself. And one of the things actually that was that we were very aware of going into some of the early classified figures was Fred on Pursuit of Cobra, or maybe it was Rise of Cobra at the time, anyway, but did the sculpt for the Commando Snake Eyes from the 4-inch line. That had the actual soft goods straps, and a phenomenal figure. And I remember even at that time, Fred had sort of self-critiqued him, his sculpt, and saying like, oh well, he wanted the pants to be even baggier and a little more realistic, and so going in, that now we're at 6-inch, like, okay, let's push that a little bit further, and try and achieve those things that we couldn't, or we hadn't done. Yeah, that one. Oh, I love that figure so much. I have several of them in my 4-inch collection. But yeah, so things that that can always grow and be better. That's one of the things. Every sculpt you do, every figure you make can always be better. And so when you're making the next one, you try and take that learning into that project as well.
Skipping ahead just a little bit, because I feel like there's so much that can be said about the legacy of these figures, right? So this one, and I was trying to find Fred, I believe you put up the sculpt for the Commando. This is more like the Ninja.
Yeah, it's a while back, so you have to
yeah. And I'm glad that you share these with us, because I love learning about this stuff. I feel like I could take a course on this stuff.
Part of me still misses the wax sculpts. That's why I've been nostalgic posting those pictures.
Yeah, because you switched over to digital, right?
Yep.
And once again, I'm going to go back to that because I feel like there's so much art that goes on that we don't even see by the time that we get the figures, right? But I wanted to take it back to this because it's your 6-inch Snake Eyes custom, because it's once again, it's all right there. It's crazy. It's crazy how much DNA you were able to keep between that and this.
What torso is that? What should you use?
I'm pretty sure that is the torso of New Goblin from the Spider-Man 3 movie. I think it was that one. Yeah.
Wow.
Which, is, I chose that one because it was, sort of skin tight suit, but then had some, tactical gear type on it, which for me, my favorite Snake Eyes is always when they blend the Snake Eye or the Ninja with the Commando versions, which is then really what we got to do with that first, 00 Snake Eyes, bringing in more of the fatigue pants, but then still having more of a, ninja sort of style body armor up on the upper torso, and the ninja shoes, so for me, that's always my perfect, version of Snake Eyes is when you can blend those two elements. And so, I mean, that Snake Eyes is still probably the favorite figure that I've worked on, just because it was exactly what I wanted it to be. And I got to put so much of myself into it, even though Fred was, the hands-on sculptor for it, on the Hasbro side, me and Lenny, really got to dive in on what do we want this, this line to be, and we started it with that figure, and the big contribution that I had, or one of them anyway, was the articulation. And, me and Lenny had many conversations and we're like, all right, looking back at every iteration of G.I. Joe over the last, 60 years, or whatever it was at the time, G.I. Joe is always on the cutting edge of pushing, what action figures were at that time. Going back to the 12-inch with Kung Fu grip and flocked hair, then bringing in the O-ring figures, that was, blowing everything out of the water of what, was in comparison. 25th anniversary was like a whole new, thing for 4-inch, highly articulated figures. And then Pursuit of Cobra raised that bar again, with more articulation, way more detail, accessories, all that. And we're like, okay, at 6-inch, we need to be able to push the bar again. Giving them, Legends articulation for me wasn't enough. It was like, I love Legends to death, but it was like, okay, but this is G.I. Joe, let's see how far we can push it, and so it was one of the things that was like, okay, Marvel, has their sort of traditional articulation that they do. Star Wars Black Series has the couple, of unique points of articulation that they do, and also familiar with a lot of the import Japanese lines. So I'm like, how can I take all of that and put it into one figure, and do as much as possible, and it worked, and I was incredibly proud of that, and being able to create that with Snake Eyes and then say, okay, but we're not just doing that for a Ninja. This is every figure that we're doing. This is just the standard for the line, and so, yeah, I'm incredibly proud of how we were able to achieve that and how much input I had in it, and so, yeah.
You should be incredibly proud. This is still the crown jewel of my collection. I was able to get this back in PulseCon 2020, and I thank my lucky stars because it's just outstanding. Just the shot across the bow, the stake in the ground, and being like, this is 6-inch Joe. This is what this is. People were hypothesizing what it could be for the longest time, and you guys did it. You guys are part of the dream team, like
you
guys are like, if not Jordan Pippen, then you guys are Goku and Piccolo. Like that's where like you guys are at, right?
So, nice. Thank you. That means a lot. It does.
Yeah, man. I could go on and on. Hell, I'm gonna go on and on. So like when it comes like with stuff like this is the weapons rack, and people will still pay insane amount of dollars just for this weapons rack. So like what were some of the conversations that went behind this? Like let's take the 2 Guardians of Japan. Let's go ahead and like really do this up. Let's have a rack for all these weapons, and we sort of reuse everything with the Red Ninjas and everything else. But at the time, we just hadn't seen a figure with this much stuff before. Like even with Marvel Legends, maybe Toy Biz and like the bases and cool little diorama pieces that I kind of miss. I understand that we couldn't really do that with Joe, but where did that come from as far as like something like this?
Yeah. So, that was a lot of conversations among the whole, G.I. Joe team, to before we got to this point, but we knew we wanted to come out the gate with something very strong and with something that was more premium, than just, hey, here's the first of a 6-inch figure, for Joe. We wanted it to be a little bit more special than that, and so talk about like, okay, well, what else can we do to, make it more premium without, doing something too over the top either. You're always trying to find that balance of how far can you push it before it's too much. It just sort of things fell into place, that it was like, well, Snake Eyes all about the ninja stuff, and we can really, blow that out with a lot of cool accessories. And essentially we can do that by keeping the tooling cheap, because you can put all of those parts into one mold, which then allows you to do more in other ways, always trying to balance that budget of where, is best to spend it. And so, yeah, the weapons rack, and all of the extra accessories, it just sort of fell into place as a concept, and then, it was Lenny that ran with it, and came up with, how to incorporate the, traditional Japanese gods, and he, I wish that I could remember more of the story and the lore, that he incorporated into this, because there's a lot of details, that he added, because he studied up on it, and he wanted it to be, true and faithful to what it is. He didn't want to just, be like, it's a Japanese thing. Like, no, it is what it is, and he wanted it to be, paying tribute in a honorable way to, the culture there, as well as make it something that's really cool and interesting to look at, and then using the dog guardians, but then tweaking it so that they're a little bit more wolf to bring in that timber element, that again, all kudos to Lenny, just phenomenal designer, and really, it was able to hone his, design, aesthetic and creativity into everything, in every figure that we did. And so, yeah, working with him was always incredible. And yeah, I guess that's about how the story went.
All right. And yeah, like seeing the handoff from the work that Lenny did with the designs here, even with the accessories, and then to the work that you, Fred, yourself did in just envisioning that. So where does that baton get passed? Where you're like, Lenny's designing, Cory, you're giving input, and then Fred does his thing in the Walk-A-Vader or whatever. Like, where does like what's that like? Where is it? Well, and Fred, I'll let you touch on this. Like, when do you get the blueprints, and then you had to do your architect magic?
It was like out of blue, because at this point, I had mid-boss fight. Last time I saw Cory was when he got married a few years back, and then like out of the blue, a few years later, says, "Yep, G.I. Joe's back. I got this figure for you. Want to do it?" Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with this first one, having the history that me and Fred did, the moment that it was like, okay, we're doing 6-inch G.I. Joe, it's becoming real. There's no one else that I want to give this to as much as Fred, and so I knew that he would crush it. He's incredibly talented, and puts his, whole heart into every project he does. So I knew that was reliable. And, I knew that it's something that he would love and, would be excited to work on, and as the sculpting manager, of managing a whole line, that was always something in the back of my mind was, can I get vendors to work on things that they will enjoy doing, and things that they would be fans of, because I want them to be proud of the work that they're doing, because then they're going to give that extra little bit, of love into it as well. And so, yeah, this one was a no-brainer, really. That was just, as long as he has the time to do it, he was my first and only option.
For G.I. Joe.
That's right.
6-inch G.I. Joe. For Snake Eyes, 6-inch G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
But great thing about this project, though, was because it was so new, the very first figure, it was constantly evolving. So it actually took like a few months to, dial it in to what you guys wanted.
Yeah.
And so it was a nice, slow process. That's line, and it was great. It was just pure fun and pure enjoyment all throughout. This is from my side.
And then one thing leads to another. So let's take it all the way back to 2020. What did it feel like when you're? This is before COVID. COVID doesn't exist. There's no such thing as coronavirus. It's only a scenario that exists in sci-fi, horror, and really smart British movies. But so what was it like? How stoked were you to unveil classified series on an unsuspecting public? Like what was the feeling like?
My perspective is gonna be different from Cory's because she's more close to the West. I was on the outside. I didn't know when it was gonna come out. I thought it would come out, the following Toy Fair, but didn't.
Okay.
The following San Diego Con, nope. The following Toy Fair, nope. The following San Diego Con, nope. So at that point, it was 2 years had passed or so. I kind of thought one of those lines might have been canceled because I didn't know where it was going,
Okay.
A lot in this industry. So when it did finally announce in Toy Fair 2020, I was like, it's happening.
Yeah.
And let me, yeah. Please.
So it was one of those things where, anytime you're starting a new line, particularly at a large company like that, that there's just so much that you need to go through, before it comes out. And it is one of the things that, there's a lot of hurdles and obstacles in the way. And so there's just so many points that can get, a project cut, for any number of reasons. And so even internally, we were all, a lot of times we were like, okay, is it going? It's not going. It's going. It's not going type of thing. But Lenny, to his credit, he was a big part of that, and just constantly pushing it forward, and to be honest, we even did jump into just like, let's just make things, and just get the ball going, because it's a lot easier to get something sold in when, someone can hold it and go, oh, well, yeah, that's cool. People are going to like this because I can hold it and see that it's, cool and fun, as to opposed to more just, ambiguous, concepts. So we just constantly pushed and pushed until, it was eventually like, okay, we're going to be showing it at Toy Fair. And at that point it was like, okay, all, hands on deck and, just full steam ahead. And at that point already then working on, the next wave or the next two waves, however that had worked out. So finally getting able to announce that and get some feedback, is huge, because at that point, G.I. Joe had been shelved, for several years, and hadn't really had anything on shelf, and had anything, for consumers, outside of like the Collectors Club had some things here and there, and some like little exclusive things. But as like a whole line, it had been quite a while. Right. And so now coming out on, the scene new at a new scale, we were very much like, are the collectors going to show up for it?
Right.
Are fans going to be into it? That type of thing that, we were sitting on the edge of our seat, but that when that was shown, like, okay, what are people going to think? And there was a lot of, different ideas sort of what this was going to be, from fans, and whatnot. But even through all of the, small criticisms that people had, which is fine, the overwhelming, message that we were seeing is that, people are excited that G.I. Joe is back, and, this new, scale and new line, people are into it, and even if they have little nitpicks, whatever, a lot of people were just like, but G.I. Joe's back, and they were ready to support it, from jump, which was obviously extremely relieving, because it's like, okay, what we did, people like it, they're excited for it, we can continue making it, and so, the reception was really good, obviously, there was some critiques, and Lenny, is it just, I mean, I can't speak highly enough of Lenny, you know, incredibly talented and very good at what he does. And so he was always paying attention to what fans and what people were saying, you know, and so, yeah, we're trying, you know, constantly trying to adapt and steer the ship, you know, to get the, you know, the best product possible and the ones that, you know, people would be most excited about. So, yeah, and, you know, I think we really got in the swing of it, you know, you know, as quickly as we could, you know, really. But yeah, so it was awesome. It was awesome.
I mean, it was just in real time, seeing these figures come out, and like, you know, and I was hosting these variants. I always point to the field variants, and I'll take them both. I have pretty much everything from classified series. So just watching the line morph and take shape, right, has been like really incredible. This is my crowning achievement. This is the G.I. Joe classified series checklist. And I always preface, don't worry about the dollar amount. It's just a slow drip. Treat yourself a fig every now and then. Friday figs.
Yeah.
It's Friday. Let me grab a fig, right? So it's just nice and slow. But this stuff has just been incredible. This is the stuff that got me back into collecting, that got me through a modern day plague, and just harness the joy of childhood back again. I have nothing but kudos for you gents at this. Cory, you had mentioned earlier that sometimes you'll even use this as reference, and I'm very, very proud of that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a couple of times where, you know, just chatting with someone about, you know, the line for various reasons. And yeah, once you had posted this, I was like, oh, I know right where I can find a visual checklist of everything. And it has been super useful. So, you know, I have not spoken directly about that checklist with Lenny, but I would bet that he uses it too.
No, I appreciate that. You know, and I'll brag on myself a little bit, but still, when you guys were talking about giving something they could hold, like, were you kit bashing customs and being like, look, like, not from your own personal collection, but you were basically giving them the folks at Hasbro who had to give it the green light. You were giving them stuff like this, right?
Well, not directly. You know, you can do it that way for sure. But at that time, you know, we essentially we just moved forward straight to doing original sculpts. You know, and so, you know, the Snake Eyes was obviously the first one. You know, and we spent a lot of time on that one to get it, you know, where we wanted it and whatnot. You know, and then we just rushed that to 3D print, you know, and get that as a model, get it painted, you know, and so being able to have, you know, a painted, printed prototype that we're like, hey, if you like this, like, we can send it to tooling right now, you know, like, we can get this sprinting out the door, you know, can take you a long way, you know, at a company like Hasbro, you know, and can just help, you know, encourage that movement, because yeah, there's a lot of times where things can just sort of stall out, you know, and just sort of sit in this middle space of like, well, we're not sure if that's what we want to do yet, blah, 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 you know, and even still, like, that happens all the time. I mean, to be honest, classified series is not even the first 6-inch Joe pitch, you know, that went. You know, there were several over the years, but that was the one that just, it hit at the right time. It hit in the way that, you know, the company was ready for, and, you know, there was, you know, just one of those things where everything just lined up. It was green lit, and we were off. And then, you know, really it was, it was Toy Fair that, you know, where it was shown that really solidified, like, oh, this is going to be big, you know, it's going to do very well, you know, and it was just like, okay, make more, you know, and yeah, you know, once you get that sort of green light, then you just run with it, you know. So yeah.
And that's how you end up with all of these.
Yep.
Yeah. And I oh, please.
No, it's just, yeah, it was a lot. You know, during my time, you know, again, I was let go in February of last year. Actually, if you wouldn't mind pulling up your checklist again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go to the next page of it. Okay, yeah, so, yep, up to number 124, is the last one that I, officially had worked on, because, we're always working 12 to, 16 months ahead of time. So of the line, I worked on, 1 through 124. And then, obviously the retro cards aren't numbered in there, but I worked on all those, and then a lot of other stuff in between, that don't fall into the number list. But that's the easiest way for me to be able to just be like 1 through 124, was all what I was managing, and when I say that, of course, that means I'm working with freelance vendors like, Fred and, several other, very talented sculptors. But Fred, of course, was one that from jump, it was like, all right, here's a figure. Okay, that one's about done. Well, here's the next one for you to work on. All right, here's the next one for you to work on. Just making sure that he was constantly going on GI Joe projects. So that we were, always feeding that, and because of that, a fair amount of the collection is work that's by Fred. And so yeah, I view it very much as a collaborative thing, and he was huge and pivotal to being able to make the line happen. So yeah, I'm very thankful of being able to work with Fred, and it was great.
Oh, I'm thankful too, dude. And just being a part of this is just, like I said, it's a dream come true. So it was, plus working with you again was incredible.
Yeah.
Coming from two guys who customize these stuff, over a decade ago.
Yeah.
I am. Oh, please.
Sorry. No, good.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful that it was you two that were spearheading this line and working on this line. And I know about some of the alternative pitches for 6-inch Joe without naming names. I'm glad that those weren't the ones that went off, because I think it would have veered away from the visual identity and the toyeticness that we love about Joe and turned it into something. Well, I'll leave it at that, because I know like that type of aesthetic has its fans, and I don't want to detract from that. To me, that's just slapping the name G.I. Joe into something else that's not. And I'm really glad that, we're able to get figures like this. Like I would have punched someone in the face to get this, man. Like, don't punch people. For those watching, don't punch people in the face for figures.
Okay? We saw some really weird altercations in Target during that time. So
yeah,
it was
Cobra
crazy.
Island was vicious, man. But it was worth it.
Yeah,
you guys made it worth it. I was getting there 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. I was helping out friends of mine with this stuff because I wanted them to know about this line and what they were doing. And so like, you guys, you made these figures worth it. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but it was always worth it. So once again, you have my thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And that is one of the things, Cobra Island was, it is what it is, and did not really, anticipate how ferocious, the fandom was going to be for those figures. But I am a collector. And so, yeah, me and my wife, and I know Fred, we all went out, at 6 a.m. to get to Target, to get in line, we
That's
were there
crazy.
too.
Which stores we're going to go to so we can, maximize our search patterns.
Yep. We would coordinate.
So wait a minute. So Hasbro were not giving you guys the figures.
So unfortunately for our freelance vendors, Hasbro does not provide product to them. The net of that is too wide, and they just work with far too many vendors, from sculpting to design to packaging to, copyright, all parts of the company uses vendors. And so it was kind of established, long before I was at Hasbro, that getting product, to the vendors that get to work on it is just not very viable. And now, so for me internally, I would get pre-production samples, that we would review, so once the tooling is done, they'll do a first shot, where they'll just shoot plastic, into the molds, assemble the figures, and send that, and it can be, all kinds of things. You can get a Snake Eyes that's all pink, that type of thing, where they're just, troubleshooting the molds essentially. And so you would get those, and then you get another round that would have deco, and you'd get another round that has proper packaging, but they're all pre-production. And then by the time, they're at final production stage, it is, to be honest, kind of hit and miss. Sometimes you will get, final production samples. Sometimes you don't, and it kind of depends on the team that you're on and, what that work, what that flow is. And so for G.I. Joe, sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. By the time that Emily Bader joined the team, that was something that was important to her, though, was to make sure that everyone internal that works on it can get the product that they want.
That's cool.
But at the Cobra Island time, she had not joined the brand yet. And so, we were on the hunt. Also, that being, I was going to do it anyway, because no matter how many I had, I still wanted more. So,
But I just think that's crazy that y'all were out there with the wolves like we were, basically.
Yep.
And
once
again,
and
shout out to,
well, I was going to say, it is one of those things too, where, there were times I would feel bad that it's like, I work on it, and so like, I want it and I need, for my collection and for my own, reference of having my art, but also I work on it and I'm going to be getting figures that makes it so that, someone further down the line can. And, an odd, fight amongst my own psyche about that, but ultimately, I know, it is what it is, and one of the things I make sure that, even on lines that I don't work on, when I'm in that situation, I'm making sure that I'm getting it for myself. I'm not going to sell it later and that type of thing, and so I don't know. That's how I rationalize it for myself. But
I think you guys shouldn't have to pay for any Hasbro figure that you make. That'd be like Fred paying himself for boss fight figures at this point. Like, it's like, but well,
different. It's a different beast, working at a big company like that. And so, you do what you can in those situations, and so I had to hunt them down.
Let me ask you, what were some of the guiding principles on taking a figure and, we were talking earlier about, the work that you had done in some of the earlier lines. I went back and like showed off, that Snake Eyes and the Destro from 2011, 2012, right? And once again, just incredible work, just even with this stuff. And it's like getting back into figures also got me back to multi-scales. And I'll be honest, I had to be careful. Like getting too much of everything. So I take it slow drip. But just like even the amount of work that you're able to put into a 3 3/4 figure and everything else. So when you're doing something like, say, Beachhead, for example, and you're updating that figure. So what are some of the guiding principles in saying like, this is what 6-inch Beachhead's going to look like? Like what goes into that?
Yeah. So, I guess, well, for one, a lot of it is Lenny, being the designer. He's on the, the front end of the design and development process, and so the majority of that is coming from him and is, being dictated from, what he wants it to be, but then also we have a conversation, and there's plenty of times where it's like, oh, well, what about this, or, could we approach it this way, or, whatever it may be, and so there's always conversation, and the design and, sort of the trajectory of the project can sort of ebb and flow. And so a lot of it is, just the design interpretations of the people working on it. And so for classified series, especially for wave one, there was, and as I mentioned earlier, there was an unknown of who is this consumer that's going to want these figures. Is it going to be the collector? Is it going to be a new consumer? That type of thing. There was not sure. And so we leaned more into what was the most popular thing in the world at that point, which was Fortnite. And so we took some of that inspiration, but always making sure that everything that we're doing is still harkening back to the original character.
Right.
And so we wanted to make sure that no matter what, at a glance you can go, oh, okay, I know who that is. I get who that character is, and what their story is, to a certain extent anyway. And all of that is very important to Lenny, is designing story first. And so for him, making sure, okay, I know who these characters are. I know that Duke is a I hope this is right, a Army Ranger, and so how is that going to play into who the character is, especially in the 2020 era, so that we can bring more of that into the character, but always making sure that the baseline is true to who Duke is, whether you're getting this figure, the Renegades figure, or the Real American Heroes figure. There's definitely a through line that is always relevant or prevalent to the character. And so just always made sure that we were doing that, and staying true, and then trying to essentially then find what the design aesthetic was for everything else. And so there was some sort of weaving of more new design and new inspiration to very classic design and inspiration, and trying to figure out where that middle ground is. And so characters like Dr. Mindbender, extremely classic. It's practically take the Real American Hero figure, scale it up, and that is what the classified figure is, but way more detail, pushing the character, trying to get as much character and expression and feeling into that figure and into that design as we could, and also Lenny, again, using all the accessories to tell the story of this character. And so this one was super fun. One of my favorite sculpts that we did, and Fred worked on this one, of course, and crushed it, and just brought so much life to Dr. Mindbender that made me fall in love with this extremely ridiculous design and character.
It's this was a home run, as my friend Ryan Sweeney loves to say. And man, there was we were all worried about are we even going to be able to get this? Are we even because it was an exclusive at the time.
Yep.
And once again, I did what I could. This stuff is insane. I did what I could to help people get this. I couldn't help them all, man.
Yep.
But yeah, this kind of stuff is this is why it got people back into collecting, why adult collectors now are such a large segment and not the largest segment of toy customers nowadays. This stuff is really great. So Fred, I wanted to touch on really quick some of your, once again, your design interpretations. You get the marching orders from Cory filtered down from Lenny. So what does it mean when you're able to take that and you just go off and show off when you're doing stuff like this, right? So what does that mean when you're sort of in your sculpting world and now you have the ball and you're running with it? So what does that what is that like for you?
That just means I gotta try to recreate their guidelines and the inputs as best as possible. What makes them happy, and at the same time, add my little, I don't know, flourishes. And I like sculpting folds. I think it's a fun and therapeutic for me. So I get to freestyle that a lot, and that's like what I feel like I add into the sculpt more.
All right. For those who don't know, Fred is also 2D Sculpts on Instagram. Highly recommended. If you're a fan of G.I. Joe or action figures in general, check out that Instagram. It's very entertaining. Fall into the rabbit hole and enjoy yourselves. Man, this stuff is incredible. And of course, you also have Boss Fight Studio. So what are you excited to share with folks down the line with everything that's going on there as well?
Oh, we got a lot of stuff going on, but currently I'm pretty involved in the more excited for the Red Sonja or Epic Hex 6-inch line.
All right, yeah.
Court of the Dead figures just pre-ordered, I think yesterday, which Cory sculpted death for me.
Okay.
And he did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, that one was a fun thing that just kind of happened. Boss Fight had been doing the 4-inch Court of the Dead figures, and they look great. And at the time, I was like, I finally gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm really focusing in on the 6-inch collections, and trying to limit how many things I was bringing in, and so trying to keep that more limited to 6-inch. And I'm a big fan of the Horseman's Mythic Legions figures. Me and Fred were having a conversation. I was like, dude, the Court of the Dead figures, they're awesome, but like 6-inch, like, come on, man, that's that's what I want. And, and so he was like, yeah, I get it. And like a month later, I was let go from Hasbro. And like that week, Fred reached out to me and was like, hey, if you're going to be doing freelance, do you want to do a 6-inch Court of the Dead death? And I was just like, oh my God, this is the greatest gift that I could get right now. It's so, it's so me, just very macabre and, over the top,
dark fantasy
stuff. So cool. Yeah. Dark fantasy thing. Yeah. And so, when he offered me that project, I was just like, yes, absolutely, sign me up. And so that was, I guess technically second freelance project that I did after being let go, and, just got to throw myself into it, and, being able to translate the incredibly beautiful designs, from Sideshow and the premium format that they did into a 6-inch, fully articulated figure, it was awesome, and a muscle I didn't get to fully stretch, a lot when I was, managing a line. And so, yeah, it was great to be able to work on that with Fred, and, sort of roles reversed a bit, working on that project. And so, yeah, it was great. It was an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. Once again, incredible work. I mean, I feel like if I'm not careful, this is going to be like a 5-hour video. So I need to, but I just want to say, it's like, you guys are like Run DMC. You guys are like, whether it's like the MC and the DJ, or it's like and also I was hoping that this episode wasn't going to cost me money. But listen, man, I work hard. I make money. I earn money. So just for the art of it, I think I'm definitely going to have to pick up some of these, because, man, and I'm really trying to watch my swears, because I really want as many people to watch this as possible. Just know that internally, I'm swearing up a storm right now about how good these are. I need to watch my potty mouth.
Awesome.
But
yeah, well, thank you.
Just incredible. The articulation. If this was a statue, it would be incredible. So just adding the art of finding the articulation in the joints and everything else, down to the ankle rockers and whatnot. So that reminds me. Okay, I always wanted to ask this, and I have you both here. Why ab crunch instead of diaphragm joint?
Um. Well. Okay, Fred. Do you want to input
and
anything on that?
if I've gone too
No, it's
far,
fine.
I'll cut this out.
I'm a diaphragm guy, but I'm also old school. I like the ab crunch because first time I saw the ab crunch was in Marvel Legends Gambit, and I was totally amazed by it. But I do like diaphragm joint.
Yeah. So for the classified line, that was the ab crunch is the one that I was pushing. And essentially because the ab crunch is always going to give you further range of motion in essentially the one direction that it goes, but it will be able to push further than the diaphragm. But the diaphragm joint will give you more direction, so you can go side to side, you can do a little bit more nuanced movement, but the crunch is going to give you further. And so when we were starting the line, we put the rocker at the waist, and then that provides you the ability to capture that same articulation that the diaphragm does, but just at a lower point. And realistically, having it at the waist, it's not going to give you as far movement as it does up at the diaphragm, but putting that with the ab crunch, and being able to do a rocker at the lower neck as well, really allowed for some great range of motion, and being able to achieve some pretty impressive poses, and so it was something that I was really proud of, being able to incorporate all of those joints with the new drop hips. Now that Snake Eyes can fully bend so that his forehead can touch his knee, and to my knowledge, I don't think any other line can do that, in the American $25 market. So yeah, that was why I chose it. And then as we continued to work on the line, there were certain spots that made sense to be like, well, let's try a diaphragm joint, so that we don't have to break up the design, and as
like
the
bazooka
crunch does. Yeah. And I have seen a lot of people argue that it's like, well, that one has the numbers lined up so that it would have made more sense to do it with a crunch, which, I mean, yeah, maybe, but he's also a bulkier figure, and that was a big part of it, that the more bulk you get, trying to incorporate an ab crunch, a hinge into that anatomy, ends up getting weirder. And so that's why we did the rocker for him. And then also on the Serpentor, wanted to do the rocker on that. It just worked really well with the design. And yeah, so then just as the line went on, we started to just kind of mix and match, when we would use one or the other. And so even on the retro Duke, he is your more traditional, just hero build. But we gave him the diaphragm as well, as the lower waist rocker, of course. And, it worked really well for that as well. And so, yeah, it really just comes down to what your preference is and what your priorities are. But for that first Snake Eyes, it was really incorporating as many points of articulation as I could. Of course, that made sense. I am also not in support of adding a bunch of points of articulation just to call them out.
Right.
I want it, it needs to have a strong purpose, and make the product better and better, not worse or indifferent, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, so for the first Snake Eyes, to me, having the rocker waist and the ab crunch was the best of both worlds. So.
No, thank you very much. And that was super in depth and super nuanced.
Yep.
So, and yeah, I think I've had to, the more I would play with the figures, it was almost educational. It's like, oh, this is what I can do with this figure. These are the poses I can strike with this figure. Whether someone's in free fall, getting drop kick, sweet chin music, you name it. Like it's so it's been incredible playing with these. I just want to give a special shout out to this Airborne. I've been waiting for this for a while, and I accentuate with the accessories. Shout out to the accessories y'all gave us, yeah, and of course, like there's probably reasons why you couldn't give Airborne his signature rifle with the bayonet. Things had to be a certain toughness. My friends over at Toy Kind of Mood interviewed the Joe team and everything else, and they've been like very helpful and very cordial with the information they gave us and whatnot, why things are the way they are. And definitely I recommend anyone checking out those interviews over at Toy Kind of Mood if you'd like to learn more. Lenny and Tony and Emily, they were all great. I'm once again just really glad that you all were working on this. Not saying bye. I'm just saying, like, I'm just really grateful. And because it could have went any number of ways. I've been in other fandoms with other action figure lines where it's kind of the same thing over and over again. Or like you said, unnecessary points of articulation being trumpeted on the package. I'm like, I can't even do anything with that point of articulation. But I'll be polite and not name names right now. So I feel like it really is the best. You guys, and I said the same thing to the Joe team when I got to talk with them last year. Classified series, I put it up there with Mofex. I put it up there with SH Figure Arts. I put it up there with the best. To me, this is the best, especially with your value, with the value of these. And I know you guys are facing towards the future, and so I wanted to talk about pretty much what's going on next at Boss Fight. We were talking, you mentioned earlier the Red Sonja, and let's see if I have it pulled up here somewhere. I'll pull it up again. But you talked about that Red Sonja that you were excited about. Fred, is there anything else that you want us to keep a lookout on for?
We got the Court of the Dead pre-orders up, and I think we have a surprise going up July 4th. So
okay,
the start date. So I'll see.
Okay. So for anyone who's interested, you can check out that Epic Hacks Red Sonja. You can pre-order $50 to celebrate her 50th anniversary, estimated Q3. So you can go ahead and get that pre-order. Like I put that up there with what the loose collector figure, and everything else. Like this is a fantastic Red Sonja figure. And once again, Court of the Dead, which is there you go. That sounds like almost like a band name, COTD. Did you get the new COTD? Never mind, sorry. But yeah, and once again, excellent work, Cory, on that. Just watching you two still work together is fantastic. Also, $49.99. And Cory, you worked on both Death and the Warbringer or Harbinger.
I just did Death.
Okay.
Fred did the other one. Yeah.
All right. Still, get them both. Yeah. Yeah. And Cory, we touched on Skeletron as well, but is there anything else that you'd like folks to take a look at in the future as far as like your works or you like to highlight?
Yeah. So Skeletron is the big thing for me. The Roboskull, like I say, going to be shipping in a couple of weeks. You can still get on Skeletron.com and pre-order it. $239 for the Roboskull ship, which is an incredible value. I was pretty blown away being able to know the price and then being able to, get one of the samples in hand and play with it. It's incredibly high quality. I joined this team, fairly late in the game for the development of this, and so Mark and Ben, are the creators, and they are just crushing it, and they made truly a impressive toy, and so being able to finally get early production samples of that, in plastic and play with it, people are going to love this thing. And for those of you that don't know, it is designed to be compatible with 4-inch O-ring and 6-inch figures. Inside, it is, a big vehicle, and inside the canopy opens up, and it can fit 2 4-inch figures, or O-ring or 3 3/4.
I feel like that's so genius.
Yeah, or you can take that whole seat out and replace it with one seat for a 6-inch figure. And I've played around with putting a bunch of different things, in the one I have. Yeah. And I mean, Destro looks pretty sweet. and and all of the GI Joes or Cobra look incredible in this thing, and it has such an intimidating presence. But I've also played around with putting Star Wars figures in it. Darth Vader looks particularly cool.
Oh yeah.
And I played around with putting some Warhammer, like Joy Toy Warhammer figures in it. And actually just today, at Joe Fest, I picked up the Four Horsemen's Cosmic Legion's red pilot character. I don't remember its name, but I was like, I think that's going to look pretty good. And so I tried that in there, and it's awesome. It's snug, but it fits. And so I took some pictures of that, and I'm going to be posting them on Instagram, and just trying to, show people that, the thing is playable with any collection you have. When it comes down to it, Skeletron is just starting from the ground up, and so, you don't necessarily have a full Skeletron collection, but if you're into toys, you have something that's going to work with this, vehicle. And of course it does come with a 4-inch pilot, which is Blood Wolf. And one of the really cool things that Mark and Ben did is the figure has a removable helmet. Underneath of the helmet, the pilot helmet, is a portrait of Bob Brechin, who is the original Palitoy's designer of the original Roboskull from back in the 80s.
Yes.
And also Fred was the one that sculpted the Wolf Trooper figure, as well as the portrait for Bob. And yeah, it turned out amazing. And so I think, people are really going to dig it. So yeah, 4-inch, 6-inch, 3 3/4.
I had to grab this because they did, once again, incredible job. You can get your hands on this. So this here is Bob Brechin, who was also at Joe Fest. But fantastic book. If you want to know more about the Palitoy story, you can also find out some stuff on YouTube. But just the work that they did in repurposing those Joe molds and creating their own new universe. Fantastic. And then, of course, I should have used bookmarks. But just talking about like what the toy industry and culture was like overseas in Europe and the UK, and then leading on to everything from the Roboskull's forebearer, the TIE Fighter, and just reutilizing that for the bones of something like Roboskull. Once again, there's good old Bob right there. So it's great seeing you be a part of that team, working with Ben Conway, Mark O'Byrne, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And just really updating that. So like going from something like this, the original Roboskull, to what we saw earlier. It's just an exciting time to be a fan. And I think I'm legitimately salivating over this Roboskull. So
yeah.
But it's incredible.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And you can still get this stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, Corey, please.
Well, no, I was just mine's right behind my monitor, and so I like to play with it during my while I'm working and whatnot. It's just it encourages play and encourages the imagination. It is such a unique an iconic vehicle that it has incredible presence, and there's a stand offered, separate purchase, but you can get a stand with the Roboskull, so it has like an elevated look, so it looks flying with clear. It's incredible, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to land with this team and work on an incredible piece that when the Kickstarter for this started, I was still at Hasbro, and me and Lenny saw it, and we were talking about it, and we're just like, this thing is metal as hell, and it's exactly the type of thing that we like. And then being able to have the swappable seat so it works with 4-inch or 6-inch, was truly groundbreaking. And so being able to create something that applies, to anyone's collection. Mark and Ben truly knocked it out of the park with this, and I'm just, so lucky to be able to be part of it. And like I say, the Roboskull is going to be shipping soon. We are currently being told by the factory they are running production. We have a couple last things that we're fine tuning, but we are running full steam ahead. And so we should be looking at shipping by the end of summer. So that's gonna come up real quick. And then after that, there's the phase 3, I think, that is the 6-inch figures and the 4-inch and 6-inch Skeletron figure of the actual character. And so those will be shipping by the end of the year. Also, just because we're chatting about it, the Skeletron figure is going to blow people's minds. That was a figure that was designed and sculpted by David Proctor, who was one of the originators of Boss Fight Studios. And he is the one that essentially trained both me and Fred on sculpting back in the days of wax. He was our mentor, and we worked with him, on a lot of different projects. And so these days, he's working with a lot of the independent companies to get them up and running with the factories. And so when Mark and Ben were starting this process, he was like, I want to sculpt, the Skeletron figure, and he, had it in mind to do that. And so this is his sculpt. This is not quite the final version, but aesthetically, that's pretty much what it's going to be. But he also is working in a ton of articulation into the 4-inch figure. The 4-inch figure is going to have a double rocker, so a rocker at the lower waist and at the diaphragm, and a rocker at the lower neck. And to my knowledge, this is the first 4-inch figure that is going to have butterfly joints, and it's awesome. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so the 4-inch figure is pretty much wrapped up. We had a prototype of that at Joe Fest for people to check out. And we're then going to be taking the sculpt from that, scaling it up to 6-inch, making some tweaks to continue to push that further, for 6-inch. And yeah, I mean, just always trying to push the bar, and make everything as good as we can and better than the last. So it's really exciting.
Amazing. I'm stoked. I'm at this point, I might have to start selling blood and whatever byproducts I can sell.
Yep. How many kidneys do you need, really?
Right, exactly. Just one kidney, one liver, it's fine.
Yeah. One kidney, one Roboskull. You're good.
Folks, thank you very much for being so generous with your time and allowing me, a big, giant toy nerd, to say thank you for all your incredible work, for all the love you've shown these figures throughout the years, going all the way back to, the custom work, as we've seen here, or just really just showing love to the brand and just really showing us how it's done, and playing with your toys. You guys originated this stuff and really set a template for all of us to be proud of our fandom, be proud of our imaginations and our creativity. You guys made it cool to do this into our adulthood and really taking it to the next level. You still play with toys? Get out. Get out. You don't even deserve to see this, to lay eyes on 12, if that's how they're going to treat you.
Yeah.
And I just want to say once again, job well done on everything from Classified series, your work on 25th anniversary Pursuit of Cobra, all going into Boss Fight Studios, going into Skeletron. Just keep up the good work, keep shining, keep smiling, and thanks for bringing a smile on our faces. Thank you so much. I wish I was there at Joe Fest. I would have kidnapped Fred and be like, Fred, we're going to Joe Fest. I'll let you out once we get to Augusta. No.
Oh, thanks for having us, and thanks for liking our stuff. And like I said, this project was a dream project for us. And
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to the fans. We were able to do that for 5 years of development, because the fans loved it, you know. And so yeah, you know, once we sort of found that you know, that recipe that worked, you know, fans were into what we were creating, we were loving what we were creating, and so, you know, it was a very you know, loving relationship between, you know, us and the fans and the product, and you know, the toy photographers, you know, as well. You know, I will always be gracious to them because they were really able to take what we were creating, take it to the next level, that then inspired others to want to get it and play with it, you know. And when it comes down to it, in this, you know, economy, culture, that's a better word.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the toy photographers are, you know, the best salesmen, you know, that we have. That it's like they're able to take something, make it look badass, and that's going to make someone else go, oh, I want to be part of that. You know, I want to play with it, you know, in that way or whatever. And then just creativity inspires creativity, and so the more we can do that, the better.
Everybody who could work on classified at every level just was at the top of their game, and it just shows. It's
yeah, it was an incredible thing, you know, working at Hasbro. Everyone that was working on GI Joe was just so in love with it, you know. And there were some people that came into it, you know, not really having a history with GI Joe. You know, Emily Bader was one that, you know, she didn't have really a connection to it, but the passion of the team and the just general coolness, you know, cool factor of the brand, she fell in love with that as well. You know, and then also Hasbro has so many fans in it that wanted to work on Joe. You know, when I started working on it, it wasn't assigned to me. I sought it out, you know, like, oh, if GI Joe's happening, I want to be on it, you know.
Yeah.
I was already on Power Rangers at the time, you know, and that was a big workload. And I was also on the games stuff, you know, which ranges from making, you know, Monopoly tokens to miniatures to like mechanical game things. So that's kind of all over the place what you do. But I was also working on Star Wars at the time, some of the, you know, 12-inch like value figures. I was working on those.
Okay, yeah.
And I think there was something else. Oh, I was also working on Transformers at the time, which is, you know, ultimately it ended up just being pretty much mostly the blast effects that I was working on, because
Okay.
the other 3D development for Transformers, that's all done through China and Japan. You know, but yeah, you know, but there were, you know, some other things that I would need to work on here or there. But I already had a full workload for sure. But I was like, but I'm going to, you know, sacrifice my nights and weekends to be able to work on GI Joe. Yeah, and Fred is, you know, the epitome of that. You know, he sacrifices a lot to be able to do those figures. You know, and everyone on the team did, because we all loved it. We all loved, you know, working on the brand and making good products that we were all super proud of. And so yeah, it was an incredible time to be at Hasbro and to be working on the brand. So, you know, I was very fortunate.
Yep, it was a.
Oh,
I'm just glad to be a small part of it. So, I'm a huge.
Well, I wouldn't say a small part of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a small part of
it. This company should thank its lucky stars that it had you gentlemen on their brands, on their team, on their products. And frankly, once again, Hasbro, make sure all your dudes get the product. At least one thing that they worked on, man. I'm just saying that. Let this message go all the way to Rhode Island, or I'll sick Peter Griffin on y'all. No, but yeah, I just want to give y'all a quick shout outs to your socials. Cory, is it all right if I send people to your Instagram? Is that cool?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Then
it's pretty straightforward.
Holler at my dude, Cory. Am I saying that right? Cory Cantelupe?
Yep. Cory Cantelupe. I don't post enough. I'm trying to get better at that, but so far not so
post fine enough to me. I'm taking a note. It's like less is more. So I'm not the Once a Man Cobra Commander leaked, but everybody was like all over it. So I'm like, yeah, y'all got it. I don't need to say anything about it. And also holler at the homie Fred Aczon on Instagram. Once again, 2D sculpts. Incredible sneak peeks at the design process. Oh my goodness, we could have talked about this. But yeah, 2D sculpts on Instagram. Fred, do you still maintain a presence on Facebook?
I do not so much. Or you can also check us out at bossfightstudio.com and bossfightshop.com.
All right, yeah. Let me, I had that. Oh, here it is. Yes. Boss Fight Studios and, of course, Boss Fight Shop as well. Get yourself some really cool figs. Have yourself a really great time. And speaking of having a really great time, once again, Fred, Cory, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much. I was nervous for so long, and like y'all put my nerves at ease when we started talking. I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be, this is gonna be cooler than a stack of flapjacks."
Yeah, it's very easy to talk about something you're very passionate about. So
yes, yeah, it is. And once again, gentlemen, happy 4th of July.
You as well, and to everyone else.
You too.
Thank you. All right, folks, and thank you all at home very much for joining as well. This has been a Black Genghis presentation. Enjoy your burgers, bratwurst, and I don't know, previously recorded baseball games. Whatever you guys do on the 4th of July. Spend it with friends and family, and don't forget your figs as well. And have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Peace. I gotta work on the outro. I've never really been good at that.
That was good. It was good.
I ramble. Folks, thank you so much. Yeah, any notes? You guys have anything?
I was holding my